Good morning, boys. This is going to be coverage of a Dual Dream Whirlwind Barbarian. So I've done iterations of this before. Elemental Barbarian builds are difficult to do because it is a character that is not meant to have elemental damage. I'll repeat it again. It's not meant to have elemental damage. So there's not really skills you can amp up elemental sources of damage. There's no way to really stack it on gear appropriately. So this is very in-game with some pretty rare niche stuff, but I want to see if it can work. Now, I'll go through my setup and I'll show you what I have. There is different things to cover with alterations of gear, so we'll get to that in a second. Okay? So this is the Dual Dream Whirlwind Barbarian. So we've got a Colossus Blade. We've got a whole bunch of lightning damage, good crowd control from Dreams, and we just kind of nuke stuff, but the majority of our output is lightning damage. Let's finish off Shank, we'll go back to town, and we'll go over our gear. Now, so when we're stacking elemental damage on a Barbarian, we need to keep one important thing in mind, and that is, do we have enough physical damage? So we need physical damage to leech lifesteal. That is a very big thing when I'm trying to push this on higher ends. So looking at our gear, we have the following, okay? We've got a Colossus Blade in our single hand that gives us a reasonable amount of frames, but also good physical damage, okay? That's why we're not opting for a Phase Blade. So we've got some increased attack speed jewels in there with some ED to reach decent frames, and the rest is facets. So we have 4 lightning facets for that lightning damage, okay? Dual Dream and the Helm. We've got plus skills on here, Warcry, Battle Oars, and Find Item, okay? That's going to save us skill points. If we look down here, Warcry needs a couple, so we might as well save that, boys, because we don't care about Taunt and Battlecry, right? Dream and Hyperion. You can choose what shield you want. Be mindful that there's a little bit of a run speed deficit if you're using a heavy shield. I believe this is a medium, but medium weight rather. But you choose what you like the look of, really. Hyperion is reasonable block rate, good defense, you know, because we're going for elite, and we've got strength from Enigma to cover that. So it's pretty nice. There's no transmog in this game, so you have freedom to choose bases where you can, right? We've got FCR coverage on the amulet with Arachnid Mesh. So we need 37 FCR from these two pieces, so we don't need the 20, just 17 on here, and anything else that's helpful, and that's a good example of a perfect best in slot, right? So Gore Riders, since we're doing physical damage, and we've got classic dual leech kind of ring, Raven Frost for Canopy Frozen, laying of hands for more physical, which is important, okay? Now the only leech we have is on that ring, so that is very important to have leech on one source, probably more so than mana, but for ease of gameplay, I'd recommend having dual on there, alright? On Switch, we've got Hodo to teleport around, gives us more FCR. We've got a Tomb Wand in here, which is just for lower res charges as an option if you want to do this. You can do things like Plague, or if you really want to be niche, you could put extra points in strength to wear a Medusa's Gaze to proc lower res, but you know, it is what it is. This is not really something you'd see a lot of people do, but I'm trying to maximize that lightning damage output, okay? The charms is where it gets a little bit slimy, okay? So Torch, Annihilus, and Sunder, as you can expect, but all of these is a single mod roll, but perfect lightning damage. So 1 to 71 is nothing I've ever seen before on an individual drop. I think I've found one shocking small charm probably around 50. I think maybe around 60, close to 60 damage. I've never seen one at 71. They're very rare because the range is so far. You can get an additional mod on it where it rolls even higher, and that stacks up, but this just shows you how much you can really stack on. Remember, we do have facets on our Colossus Blade. So the only way we can amp up that lightning damage by a % chunk is from the facets. So we have no skills that deal lightning damage, that's fine. We have lightning damage from here. It works the same on our Holy Shock, right? So they're going to be amped up by the %. So 20% on top of 30. Level 30 Holy Shock, because they are combined. And also all of these the percent is added on top. You can see in the value in the top left, 59.19 on single target. If we take one off, it's 58.33. Okay, it's a good little chunk extra. Now, stats and then skills, and I'll show the mercenary. Strength is quite high. We do have a good chunk in there for more physical damage on the higher end, okay? So most of our shit is all elemental, as you can see. So excess points we're going to put in here. That's important. We've got a good chunk from Enigma as well, as I said before. Dexterity, not too fast, like as much as you would need for items. Like, we do need 110 on the Colossus Blade, so if you're using a two-handed, just be mindful that you have enough for that, if you switch it out for other things. And Vitality, we chuck everything left in there. Energy, who cares, okay? Now, let's cover the skills. So, for the skills, we're getting a 1-point wonder from Warcry from our Dream Helm. That is very helpful, okay? So we can teleport in there, we can stun, and then we can just apply all our lightning damage through Whirlwind. Through here, we've got Battle Orders maxed out. 1-point wonders down here to Grim Ward, which I have maxed out just to help amp up more physical damage with that fine potion synergy, okay? Because physical damage is important, and we can't maximize that on our gear because we're prioritizing lightning. So we need to have that balance so our leech and sustain is good, alright? Combat Mastery, it's a sword, so we got Blade Mastery maxed out, right? 1-point wonders, and then combat skills, we're maxing out Whirlwind, alright? Pretty same. We've got Might Aura on the Mercenary, more physical damage. We've got Infinity on here, so that lowers their defense as well, which is great to help us land hits, but obviously to lower res to apply our lightning damage. Andes with a Cham, and then Fortitude, alright? Before I get back into some gameplay, I want to talk about just a few different options of gear. So, I opted for a Colossus Blade upon testing this further because with a few extra increased attack speed ED jewels, it bumps up our physical damage a bit higher. So I know we have strength, I know we have Grim Ward, I know we have might on the mercenary, but I found this to be a lot smoother when maintaining life and mana pools. So I would recommend that, particularly when you're teleporting in, right? But other options are the following. Phase Blade. Now, with this, it's a lot faster. We only need 159 IS, but we can put an extra facet to bump up the lightning damage output even more, which is pretty sweet. If you want to drop Enigma, you can go for a facet plate like the following. So this would be the biggest elemental damage buff. If I go back to my Whirlwind damage, you can see it's 77.53, which is pretty crazy. Now, another option you can look at is Crescent Moon. Now, Crescent Moon you can make in different bases. Ignore target defense. Open wounds is awesome, but you've got minus 35 to enemy lightning res, but you also get a decent chunk of enhanced damage. So that's kind of the medium between the two, right? So you want enough physical where you're sustaining and you're still killing stuff that's, you know, kind of immune to lightning, but then you're also dealing a priority lightning damage. So there's a weird little medium that we want to sit. So I'm going to hop back to... Oh, my Crescent Moon is on my blade there. Where is it? There we are. Colossus Blade. Let's sit with the Colossus Blade in there. I'm going to leave my Gothic Plate on for a second, and we'll put the Enigma in our stash. And let's go ahead and get some gameplay done. Hey, boys? So, let's go over to Arcane Sanctuary. Lightning damage is pretty good to farm in here. You've got some physical immunes. You've got fire immunes, if I remember right. So, that'll be a good place to show. Now, I don't think I have a skill point in my leap attack. I do. Here we go, boys. Give me a second. We'll go W. Aha. Yeah. Nice. So damage is 77.66. Nearly 8,000 damage. Majority of that is lightning. Pretty good for the immunes. Mana drain is very annoying. You can't really leech too much off undead. So that just shows the importance of making sure you have that ring. So when we do get to enemies like that where we can leech, you can do so. I want to hop over and find some bosses and we can kind of move on a little bit, eh? Let's bump this up to players 3. Let me do that in settings so you guys can see. We'll go gameplay down to P3. Apply, that is good. And let's put that back to Enigma. And I'm going to chuck this on to... What would you boys like to see? Let's put the phase blade back on, so our lightning damage is slightly higher at 6k. And let's go over and do the pits. We'll go out to Cloister and work our way backwards. This is one of the builds that I've worked on quite a while ago, and I've done many different iterations of this, and it's so difficult to try and min-max lightning. It's so difficult, you know, because you're not meant to have it on this build. Let me change this back to Enigma. There we go. But it's always fun trying to make something work on a character that it's not meant to, you know. But instead of just slapping it on just for the sake of it, how can, like, what is everything that we can do on this character to really put it in our favor to make this idea work? And that's what I enjoy about these off-meta builds, you know? Let's pump that up. Oh boys, I forgot I can switch. I have a Hodo. How exciting. So we've got P3 at the moment. So my Grim Ward, I've got plus 120 damage on here for physical. And I do have my Warcry as well. Now, after you pop Grim Ward, if I pop here, you can quickly use your Warcry afterwards to hold them in place and stun them so they don't run off, and you don't lose them. Because obviously your Whirlwind only has a limited range, right? So here, Grim Ward, stun, and then finish off. With enough points into Grim Ward, the slow increases, which is really important. That's why I put points in there at the end, instead of just going for just the synergy. As you can see, it's quite slow. If I only had, you know, very minimal points in there, or I was just using Black Hand's Key or something like that, it wouldn't be as impressive. But it makes it easier to chase down mobs after you use it, and the more points you put in there, the more viable it is as an option to finish off areas. So I would consider using it in some cases, but I would definitely recommend testing it if you haven't already. So if you're wondering about, oh, maybe I could use, maybe this build is absolute garbage, Billy, I don't care what you're doing, but maybe I could try Grim Ward on another build that I'm using, then test it first and see. Because it takes quite a bit of stat and skill point investment to get that working. Where's my low res one? There we are. Grim Ward stun. I'm not used to whirlwinding in that perfect little triangle. Did you boys hear that? You whirlwind in that triangle, it's like a, you know, perfect damage output per second or something. I could never do it though. Fat fingers, skill issue, probably. Okay. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to keep Phase Blade on since that's the best lightning damage. I do have this here as well. So I'm going to keep it on P3. I'm going to teleport to Mephisto. And then I'm going to switch out to max lightning damage, and we're going to finish him off with that, and we'll finish the build there, okay? Another thing you can do is you can put points into something for a single target if you would like. So you can put points into a Berserk, which I was using on occasion, just at 1 wonder, because it does get synergies from battle orders. So that's completely up to you if you boys want to do something like that. But when you kit this out, you do have a few spare points. So I opted for using Grim Ward when farming areas with Whirlwind. That felt like it was, you know, working quite well together. But mix and match if you want, boys, okay? Here's a good example of having Leech. we go. Take some of these pots. Let's do it. Alright. Buff up, we'll do low res. There we go. So, 7,900 on our whirlwind. Not too bad, boys. And we've got a G-Force as well. Hell yeah. That's us, boys. That's the Dual Dream Whirlwind Barbarian. Okay? If you really want to mess around with some wild stuff, you've got some, like, I don't know, maybe you've accumulated all your runes and stuff on non-ladder now that you've done several seasons, like me and like a few other boys, you know? If you want something dumb to do and invest in some gear, do this, okay? They don't have to be perfect facets in here. You can go for a Crescent Moon, you can have crappy facets in here as well, but Dual Dreams, okay? Other basic melee gear which you should have hanging around, you only need 17 FCR. The +2 skills is not even that viable. You don't need the res that much on here, so it's not as crazy as you think. And all of these lightning damage charms, they do not need to be 70, okay? If you cut all of these down in half, if I take these off, still doing 6,000 damage, okay? If I drop these, still doing 6,000 damage. Dual Dreams does a lot of the lightning damage plus the facets, okay? So whatever charms you can get a hold of, they are worth it. I hope you boys enjoy this one. There's going to be some more lightning elemental barbarian stuff to come, but I'll make sure it's as min-maxed as we can, because you got to respect the barbarian and you got to respect the off-meta stuff, right? See you, boys.